All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Relaxed and Fast podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about different forms of cross-training and how it can be beneficial, that whole thing. So let's just jump right into it, I guess, Coach. What are some forms of cross-training? What is cross-training?
Cross-training is anything that is not running, really.
Good way to put it.
So, swimming, biking, elliptical. I would even throw the boost into that.
Yeah, I'd put the boost into that category.
Yeah, because it's running, but it's
off your
not.
feet, though.
Yeah, it's not 100% body weight. The torturous arm bike, rowing, can also be forms of cross training. So yeah.
There's a lot. It's
The pool.
yeah.
Too. I don't know if you mentioned
Swimming.
that. Did you say swimming? Oh,
Yeah, swimming.
I glossed over.
it is a lot. There's a lot of different ways, which I think is nice that there's a variety. You know what I mean? Of ways to do it. When I personally cross train, I personally like the bike or the elliptical or if we're throwing the boost is great too.
I think the popular one on our team is elliptical. I think we have a lot of people.
We have a lot of elliptical guys. We have a lot of bike people too. But the elliptical is like strangely popular for our team. I feel like, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A lot of people are excited, like lining up outside the rec before the rec opens. They're lining up, ready to get shaking to get on the elliptical. They can't wait. It's like getting the new iPhone.
I always look at it in terms of if you're coming off a pretty major injury, the first thing we're going to do is put you in the pool, and we're going to try to build fitness through the pool. It's the least amount of impact that you can have. There's all sorts of healing powers within being inside of the water and the compression that water gives and all that kind of stuff. And so the pool is first and foremost, I think, the best place to start. The challenge with the pool and the bike and some of these others is that you really should be spending just an exorbitant amount of time to do it to get the same benefit that you can from running. And part of it is it's not as big of an impact, but you don't get the cardiovascular benefit from it. And so I digress. Swimming is kind of the starting point. Then the next phase as you get healthier would be going to the bike. And then once you get healthier than that, then you're going to go to the elliptical. Then once you can tolerate the elliptical, we're going to go to the boost. And then once you can tolerate the boost, we're going to go to running. And we'll even use the boost, we'll start at 75-80%, and we'll work up to 95%, and then we might even do ends of workouts at 100%, so that you're kind of testing the waters, and if something goes wrong, you can immediately change your body weight to take it back down.
Which is something that we got to be so grateful for to have, because that boost is not cheap.
My God, yeah.
No. And we are lucky enough to have that here. Yep. And so we can do that thing where we can ease into running at your full body weight and ease out of it if we have to, or you can go all the way down, you know what I mean, and you can get off your feet like that.
I think it goes down to like 20 or 30%, which is
I think
crazy.
it might go to below that.
I think Carter was saying one of the girls was like put it on like 40 or something one time and was doing something.
It just it can wear the machine out a little bit quicker.
You don't want it,
and honestly, like if you're on there and you have to be at 50%, you should probably just be doing something else.
Swimming or biking, you should probably at that point, you should probably.
I remember the first time I was on there, I put it to like 50 for a second. I just want to see what it feels like.
I don't know if I've ever gone below 83. Because when I was hurt during cross country, I would go to specifically 83. And I think that's the lowest I've ever been. I usually, when I go on it now, I go at 95 to 90, depending on the day. So Monday after speed, me and Sam went up there and I used it, and I went
I was gonna say, how often do you use it?
I usually use it. I try to use it. So on Monday is my cross train day. That I take usually, and Monday mornings I will bike, and then Monday afternoon I try to get up on the boost with Sam, and he'll elliptical while I boost, and vice versa. If he needs the boost, I'll get on the elliptical as well, and we'll both go. So I usually use it at least once a week, or try to. But we have a lot of people on our team that also, you have people who get hyped up about the elliptical. There are also, huge boost fans here. Like people who thrive off the boost and are always up there. They live up there. I would say they're on there more than they're down here for practice. Like, you know what I mean? More on the track. Yeah.
And I think so.
Not in a bad way, to clarify. But
our old GA Mixdorf, he was a big fan of the boost, and I remember when I was newer here, he was telling me about a proposed training thing where you could reportedly start to try to train for a sub 4 mile. You start running sub 4 mile pace at 60-70% body weight where it's easier, and then you slowly gradually build up until you're at 100%.
I want to see if I can break 4 minutes on the boost. I feel like
what's the highest body weight percentage?
I don't know. I just want to break 4 minutes in the mile. I don't care what body weight. I'll put it at 30, man. Just crank.
We'll take you to that. We'll take you to that hill in California where Nick Simmons broke it.
Just fall off a cliff.
Yeah, but the boost is just such an interesting machine because I first heard something of the boost from one of my friends in high school, who's older than me and who ran at a D1 college for a short period of time, and he used the boost, and he would talk about it. And I was just like, an anti-gravity treadmill, what are you talking about? And then on my visit here, a few of the girls brought me up to see the boost, and they finally showed me how it worked, and I'm like, oh, this is something else.
It is a very nice piece of equipment. There's some other things like the lever system that's they have a couple of them at Oberlin. They're way less expensive, but you pretty much put the similar type of shorts on, and then you have a pulley system.
I've seen those, yeah.
With some of the bands that you can hook in, and they hook onto the shorts, and it pulls you up. And so I've even thought about doing that for a little fundraising action, and getting a couple of those just for the people who, like yourself, if you just want to get a couple of miles in.
Yeah, exactly.
Without having the stress, because getting some.
I don't necessarily it's not imperative, if I go out there and run at 100%. But I do like doing that at least once a week. Yeah. It's very nice for recovery.
The nice part about the levers is that we could just use them on the treadmills out here.
Okay.
And so you just hook it up.
Yeah,
and
that actually isn't a bad idea to look into fundraising wise because, we have there's sign-ups and there's lines to get into the boost. And when me and Sam are up there, if we both have to do 30 minutes, we end up being up there for an hour. And it's now it's a little later in the day and we got to go down and do core again and go through all that, and we wasted almost so much time. Well, not even wasted, but we've spent so much time up there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
invested
time. That wouldn't even be a bad idea to look into something like the lever system. I didn't even know that was a thing. Yep. But going into our next question, Coach, what are some possible reasons for cross training? Why do people cross train? We know that you can cross train when you're hurt, but I know there's other reasons to cross training. So if you want to just dive into that.
Yeah. So first and foremost is just coming back from an injury. If you have a stress fracture and you're trying to build back up, cross training is the best way to do that because you can't go out and run yet, but you can do a lot more volume. And so we've almost switched all of our training over to time because of this, because we've had a handful of guys, but especially the women back a handful of years ago, did a lot of cross training, and I don't know that it was really only Kelly who ran on Wednesdays, and the rest of that crew was pretty exclusively on your beloved elliptical machines, and so
they're all excited to get in.
They're shaking like the new iPhone just came out.
Yeah. But so first and foremost, I think recovering from an injury and trying to build, and that's why we go from swimming to bike to elliptical, because I think elliptical mimics running most closely.
Yeah.
Another way, and this is, this gets into the Parker Valby method. We've been doing this for years. So I think it's interesting that kind of Parker made it a little bit more popular, but to supplement your training. And so if you're somebody that is injury prone, there are many different roads to Rome. And so, Andrew Krupp is always the one that kind of comes to mind a little bit. And so he was a guy that if he got up to 65, 70 miles a week, he would get a stress fracture. And so we went through that awesome cycle a couple of times until we finally just sat down. I was like, all right, go on Strava and go and look and see what the top guys in the nation are doing. And I kind of already had an idea of what, it was going to be 90 to 110 miles a week is essentially what most of those guys are doing. And figure out how many hours they're spending running. And usually you can say it's about an hour per 10 miles. So 9 to 10 hours. And so, Andrew, if you're going to run workouts on Tuesday, workout on Thursday, you're going to race on Saturday, and you're going to run half of your long run on Sunday, and you're going to cross-train the other half, how many hours of work do we need to get in the other days, or even on Tuesdays? And so we kind of came up with this method that he needed to get roughly 11 plus hours of work in per week.
Wow.
And so he would cross-train in the morning and in the afternoon on Monday. He would cross-train in the morning on Tuesdays. He would run the workout on Tuesday afternoon. He would get in the pool on Wednesday for 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah.
He would then cross-train Thursday morning, run the workout on Thursday afternoon. Sometimes he would cross-train pre-meet. Sometimes he would run pre-meet, depending on how he was feeling. And then he would race on Saturday. And then he would usually try to run around an hour to an hour 20. And then he would bike up to 2 hours. And so we've had multiple individuals who have done this. So Alyssa was pretty much on the same or similar pattern. As I said, we had a handful back in Kelly's era that a lot of them would just cross-train their Wednesdays. We had a big group that would swim on Wednesdays, or they would elliptical on Wednesdays. And so it doesn't do you any good to be injured. Not everybody can handle the same type of volume. We had a kid at Sac State who was a D1 second team All-American. He was a 148 guy, multiple time regional qualifier, all that kind of stuff. If he ran over 25 miles a week, he would get shin splints.
Oh my
God! Like it was guaranteed. And so he would get on his fixed geared bike and go down to the American River Path and just frickin' hammer. And he would go on these like 25 mile rides. And he ended up running, low 150s and made the regional meet and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of just depends in getting you to the starting line healthy. You don't get a head start in a race just because you've run 120 miles for a week. So how can we try to mimic that 120 mile week with some running, hopefully, but with some cross training as well. And we've had some individuals. Bella Pindola had a calf injury her junior year, I think it was. The week of All Ohio Outdoors, and she didn't run for 2 weeks. She didn't take a single step going into the conference championships. She was on the podium in the 10K and ran sub 18 minutes to score in the 5K the next day, and literally did not run a single step. I think she might have run the 1500 the week before, and that was the only time her feet touched the ground.
Wow.
Everything else was bike or elliptical or in the pool.
And I feel like that, if anything, proves scientifically at least that this does have a really big effect on the person.
Well,
it's not just like the easy way out, as some people would say.
It can be.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of this is that you have to bring really good intensity to what you're doing. Like, you can't just sit on your bike and be on your phone and be pedaling at 70 revolutions per minute and think that is going to be beneficial. Like, you need to get on there.
Yeah, you always say to do it around like 100.
90 is like kind of the bare minimum.
Yeah, 90 to 100 RPM is optimal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to get on
at
there.
like a level 6 for our bikes.
Yeah, so like, and you have to get on there, and,
like, and it's the same with the ellipticals. It's same with the pool.
Yeah,
and I've even gone as far as one of my former running buddies now coaches like elite club level swimming, like for youth club swimming, and so I've sent him and worked with him to create like essentially a 3-week plan of training that's just in the pool.
Wow.
And so if you have something, a small injury that comes up and you need to get in the pool for a couple of weeks, we can mimic what we're doing on the track in the pool.
Wow.
With the amount of time and the different types of workouts. And so he was able to kind of break it down and be like, yeah, this would mimic what a 1500 workout should look like. This would mimic what a 5K workout should look like. Okay. This mimics what a tempo workout should look like.
And you really got into the specifics.
Yeah, and then we also change back and forth between aqua jogging and swimming. So you're not, because his thing is if you try to swim every day, you might have a shin injury, but you're also going to come up with a shoulder injury because your body isn't used to doing those motions. It's still a repetitive motion. You can get overuse injury.
And I think a question I have for you going off of that is, what if there's somebody who who's never swam before? He can't swim. Like I ran into that issue when I was having shin problems. You go get in the pool for a swim workout, and I make it 200 meters, and I'm at 190 heart rate, and I'm like on the side of the pool. Oh my god! I'm getting on the bike. I'm done. So what is there supplementation you can do with that? Or
I think part of it is that you can try to take swim lessons. You guys are athletes. You interact with other athletes on campus. You know the swimmers on the team. Swallow your pride a little bit and take a swim lesson.
Yeah.
Have one of them help you on how to get better. You know, wouldn't be any different than them asking you if they could go for a run. Or do something along those lines. And so once again, swallow your pride and have them help you. Jensen's a really good example of this.
Jensen's always in that pool, man.
Yeah, she is, but when she started, she didn't really know how to swim. And she's kind of just figured it out on her own. And so she has done a little bit of research, and she's just kept at it. I think it'd be great to have impeccable form and be able to get honed in on paces and all that kind of stuff. The reality is we're trying to get your heart rate elevated for a really long period of time to make it mimic running. We're trying to build capillaries. We're trying to improve the cardiovascular system. So we're trying to do similar things. And if you're not very good at swimming and you have to work as hard as you can to get down to the other side, you might actually be working harder than somebody that knows how to swim. You might be getting your heart rate up. Now it's whether you can sustain those efforts for a longer period of time. But just like anything else, like the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And so, I don't know, that's kind of how I've always viewed it. I wish I had a staff of 75 people and we could have like a swim coach on our staff that could just take you guys in there and take you through workouts and hey, no, your stroke needs to do this and that and the other thing. And but the reality is we don't, and I don't have the skill set to teach you how to. I taught little kids how to swim over a summer, but that was literally like, okay, put your face in the water and blow bubbles.
But it is also interesting, even going off what you just said about if we had 75 people, you do a lot of that work yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to segue us into anything like off topic, but you do a lot of that work yourself, and like you said, you've developed plans for swimming in the pool, and the pool is such an important thing. You can get a lot of work in that pool. I've done a few times in my career, not here obviously, but a few times where I've swam cross-trained, and it is extremely difficult, and I know how to swim. I'm definitely not my fellas, but
we swam when I was in high school. We swam every Wednesday.
Oh,
we would get on a bus and we would ride to Akron, University of Akron.
Wow.
And we would rent the pool out and we would swim. And we would start with you'd swim for a minute, and then you'd rest for a minute, and then you'd swim for 2 minutes, and then you'd rest for 2 minutes. And so we broke it into groups, and then we would work up to like where you'd be swimming for 6 minutes at a time, and then you would go like do a ladder up and down, and that's just what we did. We didn't know any better. There were always a couple of swimmers that were on the team that would go like they would do a legit swim workout. And we're like, hey, what are you guys doing? They're like, don't worry about it. They're like doing flip turns and cool stuff over on the side. But yeah, so I don't know. And I also just grew up around a lake and did youth swim team and that kind of stuff. So sometimes I forget that people don't know how to swim.
Yeah, for sure. And it does take
honest.
I mean, that's it. Swimming in itself is a whole other monster. That strength you have to swim. Yeah. It's a different type of strength than running. That we don't have. As I said, I think what we have. So
I think that there is some healing properties to being in the water and what it does to your body, but I also think another piece to the cross training that kind of gets overlooked a little bit is that you are using different muscles, and it can actually be really helpful for like core and some of those other things that you do have to develop strength in a different way.
And I realized that when I first started like really cross training was like coming in here and like dealing with a little injury and like dealing with that. When I really started hitting that cross training, I would wake up sore in spots I never really was, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm biking. That's working a different system that maybe I'm not used to with running. And it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. It's very interesting, but it's almost a positive benefit to it.
I think
in my opinion.
And I think something really interesting going off of that is people that are coming from a swimming background and then starting distance running, the progress that they make is extremely quick, at least for the people that I have known. I can't speak for everyone, but I've talked about him in the past. His name was Brian Kerrigan, and he ran at my high school. And he was a freshman when I was a freshman, and so we both had never ran before. Like, we both did track in middle school, whatever. We were sprinters. We did completely different things, but he was always, like, a pretty competitive swimmer. He loved swimming. So we get up, and his first race was, like, nothing special. It was, like, 18, 19 minutes. Like, it was a hot day, and then immediately his next race, I think he ran, like, 17. And then the race after that, he broke 17 for the first time. And he was, like, second on our varsity squad behind an all-Ohio athlete and a multiple-time podium 800 runner. Like, he within a year, was a high-level endurance runner. And he had no prior experience running at all. And I think it speaks to what you're saying. The benefits that you get from swimming and being in the pool with all that time it's very, very strong, and it can pay off very, very quickly, I think.
Yeah, that is for sure. I also when I ran in high school, one of my best friends and a guy who ran right next to me my whole 4 years was also a swimmer, and he was one of the best guys on the team, and he was a really good 800 guy, and it was nice to see him get down lower in the twos towards the end of our senior year. We're under the twos, lower under two, towards our senior year, but he was also like that. He would go and run cross country, and then he'd go swim, and he'd come back and would be in such good shape already because he essentially just worked this similar system for so long, and then he'd come back, and it's like he doesn't even have to really build back as much as like we did when we had to take like our off season in between cross country and track. Like, he was just like ready to jump right back into it, which was very interesting to me. And not everybody's like that with swimming and stuff, but that's how my case was as well. Is we had some guys like that.
I've talked with a couple of the kids, athletes on the team who are coming back from, end of cross injuries, and there is something to what you just said. Like, you got to get your sea legs back a little bit, right? And so the swimming and the cross training can help a ton, but that's why we try to do elliptical and get on the boost to transition you into running, because you have to build that. There is a certain feel to the and difference between being on a bike and running, and there's a huge difference between being in the pool and running, and the impact that it takes and just getting your legs used to running certain paces and all that kind of stuff as well. And once again, I think the elliptical can mimic it a little bit closer. Without beating your legs into a pulp, and obviously being on the boost can can help a ton. But there's still a huge difference between being at 90% body weight and 100% body weight.
Yeah. and the thing is with it, another point I'd make is there is a discipline with cross training that it's like, it's because we talked about in our last episode of doing the little things about, like, we mentioned a little bit of, like, your floor becomes this, so then you have to find the next thing to do. And it's like, when your floor becomes running, it's so easy to go out and go for a run, but it's not easy to sit on a bike, a stationary bike, for 2 hours.
Because that's not what your thing is, right?
Yeah.
You want to run. Everybody wants to run.
Yeah, exactly.
But once again, it doesn't, like, not everybody can run 120 miles a week.
Exactly. And in the cases with me, it's like, I would kill to run, like, every single day. I've kind of come to develop of, like, maybe for my own, recovery benefits and stuff, like, I do need 1 or 2 days to cross train, so I do work on that on Mondays especially, and even Wednesdays, and I'll cross train, and I get bored and a little pissed off that I can't run, but, like, you have to come to the understanding of, like, this is what your body needs, and this does have a benefit in the end of the day, and there is a little bit of a discipline with it of, like, okay, like, I have to get on that bike and I have to push through for an hour or 45 minutes or 2 hours or however long it is, or I have to get on the elliptical and move for this long, and I just got to get it out of the way and get it done, and, like, whether I feel like it or not. Like, there is a little bit of a discipline to it.
No, I think it's inspiring to me because we see Michael Doris now.
Michael Doris is a killer.
250 miles a week on the bike, and I'm, like, trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, I know you're hitting a lot more miles on the bike, but I'm like, that's still freaking ridiculous. He's doing what, 11, 12, 13 hours just biking because he's got a stress fracture, and
he wants to be back bad, and a lot of the things I see with cross trainers, especially ones that are hurt, and talking from my own experience, all I wanted to do is be off the bike. So when I was on the bike, I was like, well, when I get off this bike, I need to be in shape, I need to be ready. So I'd start pushing on that bike, right? And you either see that or you see people just like, I don't really want to get on this bike, I don't really want to do this, I just want to run. It's almost like you have to bring a little bit of a mentality to it, which, like, 100%. There is, like, I wouldn't say a dark side to it, but there is a disciplined, hardcore side to cross training, and some people do enjoy it. I mean, some people like, hopping on the bike, putting music on, listening to a podcast and going, and I do enjoy that sometimes, not for 2 hours, but you start pushing through. I mean, on Wednesday, yesterday was Wednesday, I did 2 hours in the morning, and I didn't want to do it, but I got through it, and when you're done, you feel that feeling of, like, okay, I got my work in for the day, I did it, and I actually feel like my body feels good. I'm ready to go take it on tomorrow in the workout, or take it on in the pre-meet, or take it on in the race, whatever the case may be. So there is a little bit of a discipline with it, a mentality that you have to bring to it to kind of get going on there. And there are some people who don't bring that mentality, and it's really important to do that.
I think so. Bella was an example I used earlier. She was very disciplined with it. The ones that have been successful with utilizing cross-training have been the ones that have brought a ton of intensity to it. Krupp, the joke was that he would create another Great Lake underneath him every time he would be on the bike. Now, the dude sweats a lot. I can't point any fingers because I do as well. But
I hope he's listening.
Sam
sweats a lot. I hope he's
ultimately,
like,
too. He brought a lot of intensity to that, and it showed with his performances. The guy went from a 17-20 guy to a 14-50 guy, and it's not easy to do it, but it takes what it takes. And if you truly want to be great and you're not somebody that can handle running a ton of miles, what are you going to do to try to get to that next level?
And making up that ground.
Yep.
It's like...
Yeah, because you are losing ground.
And we even look in your backstory. I don't know if we covered this in the intro, but, like, when we look at your story, you were like, I wanted to surround myself with those people that were running 90, 100 miles because those guys were the good guys. Yep. And it's like, okay, if you can't physically handle running 90, 100 miles, how are you going to make up that ground?
Yep.
Because you got to do something.
Yep.
And we even talked earlier in our meeting, and you said, like, we need to get a microphone in here. But one of the points you made that was really good was, like, why aren't you biking on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well before your workouts?
Yep.
Double it, because you need more mileage.
Yep.
Because that just makes you so much stronger, right? And if you can get that done on the bike, and we even, in our cross-country meeting during camp, when you talked about cross-training and developing, I remember you saying, VO2 max and, expanding your heart rate and working on that heart rate, right? there is a workaround to running sometimes with cross training. Now, granted, sometimes you can't get all of the mileage that you would from running because obviously like it's inflated a little with the bike. It's like 3 times, like 3 miles equals 1 mile running, but you can get something in still that kind of like is similar to that effect, and that's a positive move in the right direction.
Yep.
And I remember you saying that, and that was like very interesting, is you don't even need to cross train because you're hurt or coming back from injury. There is another way to your body doesn't handle 90, 100 miles a week. That's a lot of miles.
So Hope is a really good example of this. When she came in as a freshman, high school program didn't run a ton of miles. She would spend most of her summer in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and then she would run for a week or two. The season would start, and then she would immediately go into basketball season. And so she wasn't running during basketball season, and then she would go into track season, and she was really fast. And so she did a lot of sprinting. Like she qualified to the state meet in the 400 as an individual, as I think it was a freshman. And so when she came in, you have Hastings Merrick as a senior who is running 60 to 70 miles a week. She's doing 15 to 16 mile long runs. She's out there for an hour 45, hour 50 on some of these long runs. And I think Hope's first long run might have been like 8 or 9 miles. And that was a really long ways for her to go.
Sure, yeah.
And we slowly just continued to build her up. And so something that she did as a freshman is that she would cross-train a lot of those days.
Yeah.
And so like I remember even as a sophomore taking her, it was either sophomore or junior year, like we went out to Boston for the BU Valentine's Day meet, and she cross-trained her pre-meet because she was used to being on the boost for her pre-meet. And so we were trying to find ways to mimic that as close as we could. And so she started off doing a lot of cross-training to fill in the gaps. And then that cross-training turned into boosting. And then last year she was up to running, 60, 65 miles a week, and she was jumping in with the guys on their Monday morning runs, and she was jumping in with the guys on their Wednesday morning runs. And so she was able to, because once again, it wouldn't have done us any good to try to have her run with Hastings for all of Hastings miles her freshman year.
Because she would have broken down from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so she was really smart and methodical and just started off with cross-training her morning runs and then added in actually running some of her morning runs.
Slowly building that up, that base, which we just had a discussion about earlier today. And it's very interesting that cross-training has this benefit, and I think even at the high school level, it's not really known. Because at our high school, for my high school, and I don't know if this was like for you, Dylan, but we'd only cross-train if we had to go to the trainer, and the trainer was like, nah, man, you cannot run. Like, you might be able to, get something else in, maybe try to bike for like 20 minutes. But we also had no idea what we were doing with cross-training, so we're cross-training like 60 RPM, just doing nothing, thinking,
right.
We're getting the same effect.
I've thought about this a lot. I think part of the reason is that how many bikes did you have? How many spinning bikes did you have at your high school?
2.
Right.
4.
How many spinning bikes do we have here?
Yeah. Like 30, I don't know.
Right. And so I think there is just a different access to equipment.
Yeah.
That it's really hard for a high school coach to tell a high school freshman. Imagine telling a high school freshman to go down to the local natatorium or the local fitness center, rec center, to go jump. Do you think that they're actually going to go down and jump on the bike and do what and how are they going to get over there? They don't have a car. Yeah. They can't get over there. Like, there's just so many other hurdles to that happening, especially if you have, I don't know, my high school team was like 40 or 50 dudes on the team.
Really?
And so, if you have 3 or 4 guys that are hurt and the athletic trainer has one of those fan bikes with the arm things in there, and that's it. Like,
that's it.
How are you supposed to put together a robust?
It's going to take 6 hours to get all 4 of them done.
Well,
right.
I remember when I had a pretty severe calf injury my junior year, and I go into the trainer, and my mindset, she's like, yeah, you can like jump on the bike. I was out for 2 full months, and in that time I was like, oh, I guess like I'm just losing all my fitness.
Yeah.
Because I never knew, like, I'd go on the bike every other day and do like 30 minutes thinking, oh, it's like a 30-minute run, and I'd just get on the bike, like you said, doing 60 RPM, and I got back and I struggled to do like a 5-mile run, and I lost all this fitness because I didn't do anything for 2-3 months.
Yeah. It is just funny to me because my senior year of high school, like, I wasn't like egotistical or arrogant about it, but I was just like, wow, I've learned so much about running in the last 4 years. I feel like I know everything. And then, you know, I told that to my brother. My brother was like, yeah, you're in for a rude awakening. You're about to learn a lot of shit. And then I got here and I was like, wow, I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing about the sport, like, that I play, that I do. So, like, coming here, you know, like, you get hit with all that information immediately of, like, this is how you cross-train. This is how you do this. And I remember after speed development, the first time ever, I, like, went on to, like, the seated pedal bike, like the one Squilliam and SpongeBob rides. And I went on to, like, that seated pedal bike, and I was going, and Gabe's on the elliptical next to me, because there was no room. We ran out of bikes. Everybody's biking, right? And I was like, I guess I'll try cross-training. I'm a little sore today, right? And I try it, I'm going, and Gabe's like, you're not going nearly as fast as you should be. And he's like, you need to get up to, like, 90 RPM on that thing. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I thought I just needed to, like, you know, go as light as it feels to go on, like, a light run.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, man, you have to go pretty hard on the bike. You have to go, like, a little harder than, it's a little more intense. Yeah. Which, honestly, in my opinion, is kind of a positive, because then you get to bring that intensity almost every day of the week, because it's like, you're intense on the workouts, and then you come into a cross train, and you're intense on that, and it's like, that intensity is, like, kind of what you live for. You know, you live for the high intensity. Like, running a light run is fun, right? But, like, doing that day in, day out can get old. And that intensity really is kind of like a good way to change that up. So if you get more intensity, it's like that adrenaline rush and that push of, like, damn, like, let's go. Like, and you can kind of bring that mentality to the bike, which I know I'm bringing up mentality a lot, but it's just such a big factor, if you know what I mean, of cross training. But another thing is just, like, I was so uneducated coming in and didn't even know it. Like,
so as a freshman in our program, do you feel that our camp presentations are beneficial, or is it almost too much information at one time?
I think it's beneficial because, like, let's look at my case specific, right? Came in as a freshman, right? Like, was listening to all this stuff, taking it in. Meanwhile, you know, we're hammering immediately. Like, we're going 3K time trial, you know, cut down long run. Like, haven't really done one of those before. And, you know, we're at camp and we're meeting the teammates, right? Like, and obviously I knew a decent amount of guys coming in because of the summer training. Yeah. But, you know, we're meeting new guys from, like, David from Montana, or, like, the guys from Texas, you know, or the guys out of state from PA or Indiana or whatever. The girls as well. Like, we're meeting all these new people, right? So a lot of stuff's happening. But at the same time, these meetings are happening, and you can kind of take in everything because you're taking notes. And it's very much incentivized to take notes during the meeting. So those notes, like, I had those notes, and I had paid attention during those meetings, and when I come back, right, obviously I had the thing with my health kind of go down, and I had to go to the ER, so that's something huge and overwhelming happening. Meanwhile, I'm starting my first semester of college, right? So I'm about it, like, the day I come back from the ER, I got class in 3 hours, my first class, right? So with all of that, I was still able to process and learn that information, and those meetings helped to lay that base of knowledge. And as the season progresses, and as we now get into the second semester, freshman, and now we're in track season, I know far more than I did even in August, right? And so, yeah, you lay the base with those. Those are definitely beneficial, in my opinion, because I wouldn't say it's even overwhelming. I think it's just very intriguing. It was, at least to me, I was like, oh, interesting, I didn't even know that. Like, or even with, like, we had, like, the speeches like Doc Locks, which I've referenced probably in 3 different podcasts now. Yeah. But, like, that was, like, a whole other, like, change of, like, I didn't even think of mental health that way, right, with parts. And oh, cross-training, this is how we do that. It's very detail-oriented. Oh, workouts, this is what we do. Recovery, we're very, you know, into detail with this, and I want to learn more about this and this. And it also helps when you have people like Dylan, people like Sam, people like Andrew, upperclassmen that help you out, that know this stuff already and have learned this, and kind of pass that knowledge down. And when you do have a question, you can ask either your self-coach or you can ask an upperclassman and they help you out. So I wouldn't say overwhelming. I would say a lot of knowledge to take in, and then that lays the base and foundation for as you go on throughout your year and as your freshman season, you start to learn all of this, and you're always learning.
Yeah, that's good, because that's the hope. So to kind of fill people in for when we come back in August, we do a little team camp, and a big part of that is we'll have 1 to 2 meetings a day, and I have different topics that I go through, from kind of team culture to lifestyle. Training is a big one, so we cover all of the stuff that we're kind of talking here today. We're obviously going way more in depth with it, but they're roughly about an hour long for each of those meetings, and we try to just do a dive into a couple different things to set the tone for the rest of the season. So I'm always curious how the freshmen perceive it, how the upperclassmen perceive it too, because like going through it the second time,
And another thing is like, it isn't like it's like super intense. Like, this is what we do. You got to have it done by tomorrow. It's very much like
guideline.
It's a guideline. It's like, hey, this is how we do it. It's not super intense. It's more like, pay attention, take your notes, right? Start to learn. We're going to cut you slack for a little bit. Like, if you're an older guy and you're not doing this stuff right, like, you should know better.
Right.
But
so
like,
I'm trying to lay the foundation.
Yeah.
So that people understand the whys behind what we're doing. So
and
anyways.
You do also, even with whys in the sense of like the camp stuff, you do also explain like, hit that optimal 90 to 100 range, because you know what I mean? It's like, it is good for you in this way, and it gives you the benefit this way, and this is how it affects your heart rate. And so then going on the bike, now I know, all right, I got to hit up to this range, and that's going to give me the maximum benefit. If I go anything below, that's going to do this. And as I've slowly learned, like, I've done bike workouts, right? And you've written it up of like, do this at 5K pace. I'm like, okay, well, how many RPMs is 5K pace? But then you have it listed on there. It's this many RPMs, or tempo is this many RPMs. And then that's where you finally get a goal to reach that. So I think those meetings, I know we've gotten a little off topic, but I know those meetings are beneficial.
Cool.
Do you have anything else to add about cross training?
I don't think so.
Oh, I wrote down some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, Coach has some rapid fire questions as well.
We'll start with one of the ones I have down here. So if you're new to the podcast, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions here, just to get to know our cast of characters here a little bit better. The first one I have written down is, what is the best running brand or like running company?
Oh wow!
In your opinion?
Have we not asked this one before?
We asked running
favorite
shoe.
running shoe.
This is a little bit
this
more
is
broad.
brand is more broad. Yeah.
I have a soft spot for Brooks.
I can imagine.
Brooks sponsored me as an athlete for many years and in many different forms, and I love the foundation of their company, what they're trying to do, the Run Happy. Like I think there's a lot of really cool things that Brooks does and what they're trying to do for the sport, and some of the marketing guys that used to work there when I was an athlete. One is now working for On and doing a lot of the same stuff there, and then the other one, Jesse. So Steve DeCoker is the one that's with On, I believe, and then Jesse Williams is the guy that puts on the Sound Running events out in LA. Yeah. And so it's kind of cool to have those guys as kind of connections and contacts, and they really laid the groundwork they were the ones that kind of created the Beast, Brooks Beasts, and a lot of that kind of stuff,
which is interesting.
And so, as I said, I have a huge soft spot for Brooks. I think Nike does a ton for the sport.
Mm-hmm. They do a lot.
It's really tough because there's some things that aren't great about Nike. I'm not going to get into all that, but they put a lot of money into, especially U.S. track and field and U.S. ATF, and
even like the Olympics.
Yeah,
they
they float a lot of that stuff, and
they're even coming down over here and doing our high school meet.
Yeah, yeah. They do a lot of really cool things, I think, at the grassroots to promote the sport, and I don't think track and field would be where it is if it weren't for
Nike
and Phil Knight. Essentially,
I think nowadays most people's first pair of running shoes is a pair of Pegasus.
Yeah.
Which was actually mine in 7th grade. I think it was like the 35s or 36s, but. Anyways, let's get into our next question.
Actually, that's a good question. What was your first pair
of running shoes? Yeah.
I think I had a pair of like Asics something or others that were like purple and turquoise.
When did you get your first pair? Do you know what year that was?
Oh, I can do the math. It would have been when I was in 7th grade, so that would have been 93.
Wow. Okay.
Fall of 93.
We're talking Michael Jordan era.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you grew up in that time. Yeah, he grew up for prime Jordan. I've never even seen Jordan play.
I watched him.
He got lucky. He got to see Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. I'm pissed about it, but
I watched Larry Bird's last ever game in the NBA.
Live?
When he played at the Richfield Coliseum.
No kidding.
Okay, wow, I didn't even know that.
Cavs knocked him out of the playoffs.
Let's go.
Hey, now you got a couple questions you wrote down for us. Talking about middle school and like the roots. Favorite track event in middle school, way back in the day.
So mine was the long jump. So I started off. Mike Powell broke the world record in the long jump.
You mentioned that in
your intro episode,
and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And so I was in middle school. I long jumped. I ran the 110 meter hurdles. And then I ran the 400.
It's so funny that
those are my first events.
Like a lot of distance guys, especially just start off sprinting.
Yep.
Like I ran private league track in 5th grade once.
CYO.
I think it was CYO. Yeah. Yep. And I ran the 100 and 200, and then didn't do it in 6th grade because I went to Strongsville finally, and you can't do sports till 7th grade. And then in 7th grade, I started distance. It was weird how they just random switch. And even you were talking about earlier. You did some sprints.
I still did the long jump and the hurdles until my sophomore year of high school.
No kidding.
So I ran cross country in the fall. And then my freshman year, I long jumped, hurdled, and ran the 400.
Were you any good at long jump?
Not really.
But you just liked it because of Mike Powell.
I had this affinity to it, and then I realized that I was better at the 300 hurdles than I was at the 110s. Yeah. And then I realized I was better at the 800 than I was at the 300.
And then you became
my sophomore year, I ran the 300 hurdles at the district meet.
Oh, okay.
No kidding.
Wow.
That was the one event I ran.
That was back.
And you didn't start until later for track.
No, I did.
So what was your first track event?
I did 7th grade track, and my it was picking teeth. My dad was like, "You need to go for a run for conditioning for soccer," and I go, "Absolutely not. No, I'm not going to do it." But finally, I talked to one of my friends, and I'm like, "I'm going to do high jump."
He's
and
built like a jumper. This dude's tall as crap.
I remember having a debate with my dad. I'm like, I can lead our school in the 100 meters. At the very first meet, I ran the 100, and I don't think I broke 13.5.
Right, dude.
I think I ran 13.8, got dead last. I was like, okay, I'll do the 200. It was 32s. Okay, I'll do the 400. And I remember I ran a 68 in the 400. I was like, all right. But the high jump was always the one I went back to. We didn't do any plyos or anything. We would just jump. We would just do I don't know what you would call it, but just time trial jumps, and I would PR in practice all the time. And then I made it to the district meet and no-heighted, and I remember I cried like a baby, and I proclaimed right there, so I'm never doing track again. Quit as an 8th grader, and then I just played soccer, and then coming into freshman year, I got coerced into doing cross country, and here I am. I was doing a run with Nick the other day, and I was like, if my middle school self would have been told that I am a collegiate track and cross country runner right now, I think he would have some words to say.
I would be pissed off. Yeah,
I'd be very upset.
For me, it was I ran sprints a little bit in elementary school, maybe 1 or 2 years, and then I always would win the gym mile, and I did me and my brother, we have an age gap, and he was running for the high school.
Yep.
And I did the fun run. I think I placed top 10, and I was in 3rd grade, and then I always would win the pacer, right? And I actually
the beep test.
Yeah. At one
point,
I think at Strongsville Middle School, at one point I had the school record for it. I probably don't have it anymore, but like that was a little bit ago. But at one point I had it.
I hope you do.
Something.
I hope you still hold that.
That
wasn't that long ago.
Be a good legacy.
I hope I still hold that so I can come back there and show those middle schoolers.
We need to fact check this.
We might actually need to fact check. I'll reach out to somebody.
Brownsville.
But yeah, so that's how I got into it, and then I was like, well, and also, it's in my family, so I was kind of told I need to show the hell up and get on the course, kind of, and then I started doing it.
All right, we'll jump in. These get less and less rapid fire every time.
And you know what? That's fine. We can start calling them off-topic questions if we have to.
And the next question I have for you is, who is your favorite runner of all time?
Sebastian Coe.
Why?
That's a great answer.
He was. He is still the only man to win both the 15 and the 800 Olympic gold medals. He is also... Wait a minute. He did not win the 800. He's the only man to win the back-to-back 1500s.
Oh.
Is what it is. Did he... Because he got beat in Moscow in the 8. I can't remember if he won the double or not. Anyway, Sebastian Coe. Sebastian Coe is...
And I know...
A big part of it was when I was in college, some other college kids put together these DVDs that you could buy where they had like pirated all of these world record races. And so there was like this 4 set of DVDs that you could pay like $50 to buy off who knows what college they went to. But they shipped them to, I still have them at my house. Really? And so they have like Gabor Selassie and Turgot and Daniel Coleman's like 3K and 2 mile world records are on there, and the video quality is terrible. But at the end of it, they had this Nike spot with Kenyans, and then they had the Sebastian Coe Born to Run. And it was this documentary on Sebastian Coe, and I watched it, and I absolutely loved it. And I just like fell in love with Sebastian Coe because of that video, and I went down this rabbit hole of doing all this research, and I did all this research on his dad, who was his coach, and all the training that they did, and all these other things.
Who was the one that
now he runs the international track and field.
Who was his rivalry with back
then?
Ovett.
Ovett and
everyone
Cram. Ovett, Cram, and Coe were like the 3 British dudes.
Everyone talks about the Jakob and the Josh Kerr now, and it was like, oh, this is like the first. I've heard a lot of people say this is the first like big rivalry. I go, absolutely not.
No,
that was a huge.
That's just
story.
Didn't Prefontaine also have rivals? Didn't a lot of people not like Prefontaine or something?
You do a whole podcast on that.
It's a whole another story. Like, Kerr Ingebrigtsen thing is not the first rivalry in the sport.
And running,
it's definitely honestly like
Bannister and Landy. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
people think of it as a gentleman's sport, so I think people kind of think like, oh, it doesn't really happen.
That is true. Yeah. Side note, and then we'll get into the next question. I forgot what I was gonna say. No, I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. I forgot what I was gonna say. I blanked there.
Yeah, clip that, everyone. No.
Shut up.
We'll do one more of these here. We've got a bunch of questions built up.
Get one of these. All right, here's a good one that's off the topic of running. Ideal vacation spot.
I'm a beach guy.
I'm a beach guy as well.
Yeah.
I also do. I will say though, like, adventure is nice. Like, you go out, maybe hike a little bit. That's nice.
Becky is very much her vacation was this past summer, and so we went to London in Ireland. And while I enjoyed this vacation and I loved London, I am definitely like go sit by the pool, read my book. When I get bored, jump in the pool, come back, read my book for a little bit, go out into the ocean, come back, read my book for a little bit more. Like my ideal is I can sit and raise the flag on my chair and somebody comes over and serves me lunch. That's even better.
What's your favorite beach to go to? Like, what's the best beach you
we grew up going to Hilton Head, so I've got a pretty soft spot for Hilton Head. Becky's family has a house on the beach in the Outer Banks, like way southern Outer Banks. and they have a pool at the house that's like built into a deck that overlooks
That's cool.
Overlooks the dunes. So that's probably like a A1
Yeah.
type situation.
Yeah, for sure. And then, do we want to do our music question?
Yeah, we'll do the
pick
music
which
question.
music question you want.
No, I've got a
one,
good
and then
one.
he
You can
had
do
one.
yours.
So
We'll do his.
So, what is your current earworm song? Like, what is a song that is stuck in your head, or at least, if you can't think of that, a song that just you're vibing with right now?
I haven't been listening to as much music. I kind of went back to Linger by
Yes. The Cranberries.
the
You guys were talking
Cranberries
about Linger the
is
other
the
day.
one that I have pulled up the other day that I was listening to.
Yeah.
And I let my playlist just go off of that. So I would say that it's such a pretty song. And sometimes that vibe just kind of hits me
It's a top
the right
5.
way. And then your the remix that you told me about.
The Royal Edis one?
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just going to
yeah.
ask you. I was going to say...
So
Royal
that
Edis.
came up because
I love
I've liked
Royal
that
Edis.
one too, and so
They're-
I would say
they're
that is my
incredible.
current one. I've also just been just kind of kicking around in the car. I just started listening to, and I've played it at practice a couple times. It's just my top songs from 2024 because there's a couple on there that
Yeah.
I haven't listened to in a little while that I liked.
That's a great
What
take.
about you? What's yours?
Great take. My earworm song right now is "What I Like About You" by Jank, which
Nice pick.
which could be a controversial
That's a good
song.
no, I think that's
Jank has a very gray area past, but that song, it is the only song ever I have probably listened to it 5 to 10 times a day for the last month. It has not. I don't know why it has not. Normally, after a week, I start getting tired of a song. It is still like fresh in my head, and it has been well over a month that I've been listening to this track. And
Really?
there's just something about it. There's something about it.
Another one that's been hitting hard for me is "The Forest" by The Cure.
I haven't listened to enough.
I've never heard
I'm
that.
sure I've heard it.
Dude, you gotta get on The Cure. I feel like it's down your.
I really
feel
do.
like it's down
I've
your-
had so many people tell me that my music sounds like The Cure.
Yeah.
You guys have such interesting music taste. Because I definitely like your guys' music taste. I don't know bands as well as you guys do.
Yeah.
So like I'm more
It's a
like a
fun
solo
mix,
artist
yeah.
guy, but then you guys like don't come to me like, yo, do you know this band? I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I know this song. I don't
Yeah,
know who made
yeah.
it. Like, and so you guys' music taste is very interesting.
I'll bring up one more thing that we can start wrapping up. You ever hear of Soul Glow?
Outside of Coming to America and the product that they were selling, Soul Glow, no, I do not.
There's a
See, look, I have no idea who that is. Who the hell is
they're
Soul Glow?
they're a I guess you could call them part R&B, part grunge act.
Ooh,
and it's
I like the sound of that.
I'll send you some of their stuff
Yeah,
after
yeah.
this, but they're very, very unique. I've never heard somebody like as perfectly combine hip hop and grunge like into one thing. If you know who Anthony Fantano is, he's a big music reviewer. He
Gosh,
freaking
I
he
hate
freaking
Fantano,
loves them.
man.
He freaking loves them, and it's a good take. One of his rare
For
good
context, Fantano likes rating things lower than they are for to be different.
takes.
He likes
just
being different.
to get
Unless
views.
it's Kendrick Lamar. He loves Kendrick Lamar, but he hates good music. He hates good music. It's so interesting with Anthony Fantano. He gets hate, dude. People hate that guy.
Well, when you talk about opinions, it's yeah.
He's very heavy.
tough-
That's a very heavy. Like, yeah, people get passionate about music, which
Very
rightfully
much.
so. I mean,
Very
it's-
much.
music is like one of the only things every human likes.
It's the most like
Other than
personal art form, you
Yeah.
know? Because you're
And it's like it is one of the things like almost every human likes, if that makes sense. It's like
Yeah.
one of the interests that everybody shares. Like,
Yeah.
everybody generally enjoys music,
Yeah,
right? It
that is
taste
interesting.
varies.
I never
but
thought of that.
yeah, it's one of the only things that like almost every human
I
likes,
have-
other than like food and water, obviously, which are
Yeah.
necessity. Music is something like an interest.
I
Every
would
music.
argue music's a necessity for me.
There's definitely times
There are
I've
points
met
where I
some
need
people-
it, dude.
I meet some people that go, I'm like, who's your favorite artist? I don't listen to music. I don't really listen.
I feel like those people
Are
are
you a
weird.
human? Are
How?
you alive?
Who are you?
You're a robot.
They're
Like,
like,
yeah,
they're
it's-
like, yeah, that like, I don't know, like I like that one song that was on the radio or something.
Yeah.
I'm like playing.
But
I
will
ask
say,
every
like,
recruit what is your
I do the same exact thing.
What type of music do you listen
That's
to?
one of like my icebreaker questions with a lot of the recruits, and I asked the recruit this past weekend about it, coming into Monday.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I was like, oh man, you gotta go tell Eby that. Eby loves Blink-182, and he liked Blink-182, and he was like right up your
You said
alley.
Green Day too, right?
Yeah,
He did say Green Day.
Yeah.
He did say Green Day too. Yeah, he's into that punk rock stuff.
Give me that card back.
All right.
Wrapping up.
I think unless we have anything else to add.
I think we're good.
All right.
That was a
Thank-
really good
That was
episode.
a great episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you in the next episode of Relaxed and Fast.